If you're thinking about building a cat tree, you have come to the right place. My video won't be professional or look fancy like other videos you'll see, but I'm going to offer some tips and some unique ideas that you will not find anywhere else. Believe me, I scoured the internet for days in preparation for the cat tree that I'm going to be building today. Check it out. YouTube. I am not a huge fan of cats, but my wife and little girls are, so here I am building a custom cat tree. My girls designed what I'm building today, so we'll see how it turns out. I have become a do-it-yourselfer after watching far too many hours of DIY television, and the projects around the house I think have turned out pretty good. And yes, the pictures that you are looking at now are things that I have done 100% on my own around the house. I think those projects have turned out pretty well, so after a few years of my girls begging for a cat tree, well, here I am, and here we go. So, how bad can a cat tower be? We're going to start by building a base out of this piece of lumber, standard 2x4. It's going to be more substantial than you or I will probably need. What you see here is a typical base for a cat tree. It's just made out of a piece of OSB and is anchored in using screws coming up from the bottom. But this design typically requires you to have additional anchor points somewhere else along the cat tree. The base that we're building together is going to be more substantial and less likely to tip over. Okay, so I have my pieces cut out like this, and you can see this is going to be the base of our cat tree. I'm going to screw these in from both sides using pre-drilled holes because I don't want the wood to split and become weak. I have used a little bit of construction adhesive, but it's not necessary. However, when I build, I like to go all out. I'm also going to be using a countersink bit, which you see here. I use this to allow the screw head to sink just along the surface of the wood so that it becomes flush with the wood, and again it helps to prevent splitting. Now that I have this piece ready to go, I'm going to cut out a piece of OSB that matches the footprint of our base and secure it to the top of the base here. Now to cut OSB, you can use either a table saw or a circular saw, which is right here. You can also use a jigsaw, which I do not recommend because that would take forever. Okay, piece cut out. When you lay it on top of the base, you may notice, it's not square. Either the piece you cut out or the base itself isn't square, and so your edges aren't lining up very well. That's okay, mine aren't perfect either. Remember, you're going to cover everything with carpet or fleece, so it doesn't matter if you're a little off because it'll be covered up anyway. This is the second piece I've cut out, which matches the base. This will serve as a platform which I will support using columns coming up from the base. Okay, we're going to start piecing the base together. I'm going to start with a little bit of construction adhesive. I'm going to use some clamps to secure it down and then nail it in. I used the nail gun to hold everything in place while the glue set. I came back later and put screws around the perimeter. To notch out a square for each support column, I am measuring 1.5 inches in on all sides to account for the width of the 2x4 below. The goal is to sink the column through the square opening and then anchor the column to the 2x4s using screws. Once you have your squares measured and drawn, start with a pilot hole that allows the jigsaw to start working. Continue sawing through the OSB until you feel resistance from the 2x4 below. This will help guide you to ensure the square cutout is in the right spot. Now that I have my column support holes cut out, right there as you can see, I'm going to lay this face down onto the platform to make sure I mark where the columns are going to tie in, ensuring everything will line up. I'm going to cut out 2 holes just big enough for a 2x4 to slide through. These 2x4s will rise from the base up through the platform and above, one to support a cat perch, and the other is going to serve as an anchor point for a bridge leading over to another cat perch. In addition to several cat perches, I'm going to build a box for the cats to hide away and sleep. Alright, I've got the second base prepared. I'm going to start working on cutting out a hole for the extra tall cat perch, which will be supported with a 4x4. You see that behind me. The preparation is going to be a little different than the main base. After I've done all of that, I'm going to move on to my favorite part of the design, which is going to be a removable and replaceable cat scratching post. I've got the base here for the tall cat perch. It's going to be about 7 feet tall. You saw what I did on the inside. I added some additional 2x4s for support. I also have covered both sides with OSB. And so I'm going to cut out the hole for the support and also a hole for the replaceable cat scratching post. Now earlier I said that your piece of OSB along with your 2x4s, they might not line up perfectly. If that bothers you and you have a table saw, I'll show you a quick way to get that fixed so that all your edges are real smooth. But before I show you that, I have some cat perches that I've made, little platforms, pretty easy enough to build. So yeah, there you go. I've got a piece of OSB here that's hanging a little too far off the edge. So I'm going to correct that by using the table saw here. I know it's difficult to see what's happening here, but you'll get the idea of how to correct that.